Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this class on this lesson on painting red radishes. So I have my reference photo here that I refer to on my phone. I also have an iPad in front of me that I'm looking at has a picture that's a little larger. And I've got my acrylic paint here. I mainly use the golden acrylic brand because I really like the pigment quality. So I'll be using pretty much golden for everything. I have my colors out. So my palette, I'll move it back up later, but so you know what's up here, I just have white, black, yellow ochre, cad yellow light, transparent brown oxide, transparent red oxide, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, cad red, medium, and some alizarin crimson. Now I only have the alizarin crimson hue for some reason. So it's not as strong. So I might just, to make it darker, I'll just add a little bit of this later. But it's alizarin crimson hue for some reason. I would normally buy alizarin crimson. And this is just some cadmium orange in case we need it. So I'll be moving my paint back up, but all that's up there, in case you're wondering, was the white, black, and some yellow ochre. So yeah, so tonight I'm just going to be doing this acrylic demo as a bonus for the class. So you'll be able to see that how I paint in acrylic is similar to how I paint in the oil demo. And it's, very transferable, the technique. So how I like to start is I like to get rid of this white background. So I'm going to get a little ultramarine blue and a little transparent brown oxide, and you'll see it's kind of making a gray color. And they're both very, transparent colors. So I'll just get a little bit of water and just add if it gets too brown, just add a little more of the ultramarine blue. Now the trick here when you're getting that wash is to make sure, see how transparent that is? Sometimes my students that I see when I'm in class, they'll get real thick, lots of paint and not enough water. So you'll end up having a layer that's not transparent on your canvas. You'll end up with a real black layer on your canvas. So just make sure to add enough water to your base. Another thing I like to use is some of this liquid medium. So I'll put a little bit of that out because water's easy, but technically a little dab of this, this is called GAC 100, a multi-purpose polymer, but it's all the same thing. So if you have an acrylic medium that says acrylic varnish, gloss, or medium, or matte, either one, it's all the same stuff. You just put a little bit of that out, and instead of water, just use a little bit of this medium. That's probably, in the long haul, that's better for your paint, just because what's in the medium is what your paint is made up of. So they just add color to that stuff, and that's the base of what your paint is made up of. So it doesn't pull the paint apart, whereas water starts to kind of, pull the paint apart a little and look a little bit too washed out. So when I'm lazy, I just use water, but I really should, just put a little of this medium out. So, but no worries if you don't have any medium, don't worry. So that was just a layer of some ultramarine blue and some transparent brown oxide. And it makes this nice kind of gray, starting point. So For this painting, I might use a little of this red oxide color. And there's different ways of starting the painting. I could, sometimes I like to just get my paper towel and sort of, wipe out where the main, like these radishy shapes. I'll just sort of play around like that and kind of wipe out. But with acrylic, because it dries really quick here in Arizona, I tend to I'll just kind of sketch it out for you. So I'm just gonna get this red oxide and a little, something to gray it down a little. So some cobalt blue, or you could use a little ultramarine blue just to create a little bit of a darker paint. I'll get a little dab of water in there. And I'm going to start by sketching my little drawing here of this white cloth, and then I'll kind of roughly sketch in some of these things so that I have an idea of where the painting is going. Now you can't really see, but there's the top of my picture, the bottom of my picture. So I photoed it as a square because I like painting on square canvases, so that it kind of helps me when I'm photoing and when I'm getting my subject in place. I'm already kind of trying to solve some of the compositional problems, even in my setup, so that I'm not having to go back and change too much later. So I'm just kind of going along and looking roughly where that white cloth goes. Obviously later you can change it and add or subtract it a little bit, but this is kind of like roughly where that white is and the black is at the bottom. So now I'm just kind of look at my radishes, and I kind of want to start from, I want to make sure there's a few things I want to make sure are in my composition. So I really would like to make sure that this bottom area is in there right. I kind of made sure that there's kind of some green going off the edges here, and then a little bit there to break up the, some of these lines. So I really want to pay attention to that when I'm drawing it in. I'm going to be looking at that. And so I've kind of put in the leaf that's up here, and then I'm just going to go and I'm just going to roughly kind of mark a few of these in, like really rough, because I don't like getting too tight with my drawing. And so there's some greenery coming down here. And then we got this down here. And up we go. So I'm just really roughing in, and then I'm looking at where this green's kind of coming off the edge here. And sometimes I'll even, subtract a radish or something if it doesn't quite fit in my composition. So I really want to make sure I get that one up here in the top corner. Probably that's a good guide for all these other ones. So I'll kind of look at where that one fits, and then I'll look at one element and connect it to the next, sort of thing. And I kind of will adjust the sizing as I go. So if one's a little, sometimes I just, like I say, sometimes I'll just have to omit one, but we'll see. We'll see how I do with this drawing here. So just looking at the basic shapes, I'm just using some of that red oxide and a little of the ultramarine blue, and just kind of looking at these different shapes and how they all fit here. And you may have to go back and adjust the size of one or two of the, two of them. You just kind of have to compare. How does it look compared to the other one? And what do I really see on that one? Do I actually see the whole radish, or am I just seeing part of it? And so just kind of looking at my photo in front of me, and I'm just marking these in quickly. And it's just a rough sketch. Once you start actually painting them in, then you can just work with a lot more. But at this stage, I'm just trying to make sure I get the basic drawing. But I find it much easier when I start blocking in with the color. And we won't worry too much about the little twiggy things yet, but can put a few. I just got to remember to spritz my paint here. So I have this little spray bottle I bought at the art store, the Holbein watercolor spray bottle. And what I like about it, at first I thought, well, how is it any different than any other spray bottle? But what's nice is it really has a fine mist. I thought, I'll just buy one from, wherever I can find one, but the ones at the hardware store, they just spray a lot of water compared to this. This one, it actually does make a difference buying it from the art store. So again, this is all going to be greenery, and how I paint is I tend to layer dark to light color, so I don't want to get into too much detail right away. That's probably more detail than I would normally do. So I think for now, I think that's a good start. Now, there's other ways to do it that are more probably easier, but for this class, to make it accessible for, all levels of painting, this is a good way to start. Because if you just start blocking in the color right away, that can be a little confusing. So I'm gonna just mix up. I was just trying to see what this alizarin hue was like. It's a little pinky. I've added a little, I'm trying to darken it a little because I'm gonna add some transparent brown oxide to it to get it kind of a warm dark. I tried adding some ultramarine blue and it just turned purple. So don't do what I do there. Just add some of the brown and maybe, yeah, green, alizarin green or alizarin, and some of that brown oxide will do the job. So what I'm looking at is when you're looking at something with all these round shapes, well, kind of round, some of them are more like egg shape. I really want to get that, in order to get that roundness, we need to get some of that build up to that highlight here. So we're going to start off with a darker red first. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to kind of block in some of that red that's darker, and kind of go around and work that around the drawing. And I'm just using this Simply Simmons, it's called a Bright number 12, and I know you can get them on Amazon. It's not so much the brush, it's just it's a synthetic bristle, so that's the main thing when I'm painting in acrylic. I want sort of a smooth, soft bristle. So I also have, I like this one. This is just a Princeton brush from Michaels. It's a number 4 flat. And this one also works pretty good. And you can get those at Michaels. I think I got that from. So you don't have to get the drawing perfect, because nobody's gonna go, oh wow, you have a radish out of place, or wow, that radish sure is you know, they're all such, they're very ununiform shape. So I was just testing that out. That has a bit of, I added a little bit of the cad red to that to see. I'm jumping the gun, but you'll see that's kind of what we're aiming for. We start dark and, you know, go up to a lighter color. So I'm using, if you add just a dab of sap, or yeah, sap works well, and a bit of that alizarin, little bit of tiny dab of sap. If you add too much sap, it'll get too dark. But just something to darken that alizarin, because it's a little bit too, well, mine is, when they say hue, it's kind of like the color, but not, you know, not the full deal. You're just getting sort of a cheaper version of it. And so I must have just accidentally bought that, thinking that I had the real deal, but it was probably a lot cheaper, and I didn't know the difference. So I just bought it, not really knowing. But now I know. Don't cheap out and buy the hue, because the hue just means you're getting the like the right color, but it's not really like the full deal. So I'm looking at my radishes, and I should have counted them all, because it looks like I'm missing the one down closer to the bottom of the, yeah, it looks like I missed one. Oh well. So that's when we have to ad lib a little. I had a, what I'll do is I'll just move that other one to here. So I missed this one here. I ended up drawing that one a little too big. So I'm just going to scooch one in sort of off to the side, because I'll put the leaf in between. I kind of like that. And I'm a little rusty at the radishes here. So I'm just going to keep going and keep blocking in. So in the block-in stage, there's a lot of, you know, room for, you know, correction. So I'm still using that alizarin, and I have a little brown oxide in there. And just kind of working that in. So there's a lot of interesting shapes in these radishes. And okay, so we've blocked in a lot of that some pretty reds. And now I can block in some, I want to block in the green. So let's get that going. So I'm just getting some sap green now. And I'm going to just kind of maybe add a little bit of whatever that was, that puddle of bluey purple, bluey alizarin. I mixed some ultramarine into my alizarin earlier. And just to get something, what I'm looking at now is the shapes in between, these shapes in between, the dark shapes in between the radishes. And I like to get some darks in, because then once you start working on the radishes, the bright red will really pop, you know. So you gotta just kind of build up to that real highlight that you get in there. So I'm just looking at the roughly roughing in these shapes. I mean, there's nothing, nothing really set in stone here. I'm getting some darkness between those radishes. And the beauty of it is it's a rough in stage. So if there's something that you don't like, you can, you know, you can just paint over it, or paint a leaf over it or something, you know, later. So we're just getting in some of the darks. I'm just looking at those negative shapes between the radishes and putting in some of that darker sap green color. And then you can use some sap that's a little more, you know, less dark. This one is just straight sap that I'm using here. And I'm just going to put some of that down where that leaf is there. So and then there's some and these leaves don't need to be, you know, exact. So I'm just blocking in some green where there's green. I'm not worrying too much, not worrying about how bright it is or anything. I'm just kind of blocking in some of those greens. And because I'm doing this sort of, this is just spur of the moment, I just wanted to do a acrylic demo for those of you who are my acrylic students, so that you can kind of see that, you know, after you watch the oil demo, you'll be able to see I paint similar in both oil and in acrylic. I kind of just it's sort of a direct technique. And I can zoom in a little so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm just looking wherever I see, you know, green, and I'm just using, this is just some straight sap. And I didn't spend a lot of time, as you see. I haven't, you know, pre-drawn it or anything. It's just sort of ad hoc. I'm just kind of getting this out there so you can see more the technique, not so much, you know, how to do a perfect drawing. or anything. So I'm just blocking in all the green, and I've blocked in all the dark reds. And I'm continuing to block in. Now, I think I'll leave the dark background till later. I don't want to stay on the darks. I want to start adding some lighter values now. Helps to adjust your eyes. So once you get going on the darker values, you got to kind of reevaluate and add some of the lighter values just so that you get that your eye can adjust to it again, because if it wasn't dark, you don't see the light, but then you get too much dark and you need to start to see some more lighter shades to compare. So that now you can see how bright that cad red medium looks now that I've got all these darks here. Before on this, it just wouldn't look as bright. It looks kind of dull, but up against those dark reds, it really pops. So I don't like to go straight into that. So I'm using this puddle I've got of the base, which was some of the alizarin and some transparent brown oxide. And I won't go straight to that brightest bright color. So I want to just kind of mix in some of that cad red into that puddle of alizarin and the transparent brown. And I'm just going to start shaping. See, I'm going to, and you might not want to go that bright right away, but don't forget to leave some of those darker values. Don't cover the whole thing in brighter paint, because then you'll lose that nice shape. See how it starts to give it a bit of a round shape. So I'm just gonna zoom in here. So same with this one, we got this nice color, and can take a little transparent brown oxide in that cad red medium and try that out to see if it's, yeah, that looks pretty nice. So the key is wherever you start to see a shadow on the radish, just make sure you squint down with your eyes. Really, it sounds funny, but if you squint and look through, you'll see there's quite a shadow here, and then it gets light up here. And it goes from dark to shadow to a light here. So really pay attention to that when you're, I like to simplify things so that I get a strong, strong form when I'm painting. So I'll keep that shadow simple. And so say you were to paint over it, like you paint all the way down like that, and you go, oh no, now what? Where's Krista? Okay. So what you want to do is, that's a common thing when I teach people in real time in the class. When I can just walk around, I'll notice that a lot of beginner or new students, even sometimes when it's a new subject, people have a tendency to eliminate all their hard work that they did earlier. So what you do is just go back and get that dark color again and go and put it back on. So that's just going back to that transparent, brown oxide and tiny dab of something dark like sap or ultramarine blue, and get that dark back. See how you can get it right back to the beginning again with that shadow. So don't worry if you don't like the color, or you went overboard with the color. Fear not, you can go back over it. Just mix up that original color again and go right back over it. So there's always a way to fix it. That's the main thing to remember. Don't panic, because you can always Usually there's usually a fix. You can get something, some color, the right color, and then you can usually adjust it. So I'm just kind of adding some of that lighter mix of cad red with that, you know, that transparent brown oxide, and I'm just going around and adding a little bit of that back on top. So we're just slowly building. You'll see there's still lots of color to go, lots of layers we can add to make these radishes really bright. So remember to squint down and just take a look at what you see. What's the brightest? Brightest area, and what's the darker area? And I usually, if I'm not a master at a subject, like I don't paint them every single day, I try to really kind of simplify for myself those values. So I really simplify the dark to the medium to the highlight. If I'm not a real expert at knowing what colors to use or what, how to accomplish it, is I keep it real simple with the values. I just stick to like a dark and a middle and a light value, and that can really be simple and effective way to get a strong shape going. So I'm just working that around. And so far our color mixing is very simple. Nothing too tricky yet. Okay, and then this one kind of goes off the page. Okay. So far we're just using a little of this cad red and a little of this transparent brown oxide, just to get that sort of warm, darker toned. I'm just using this palette paper, but I like to use the Masterson's Stay Wet palette also, because those ones are handy because the water comes through the paper and you got that little sponge system in the Masterson Stay Wet palette that keeps the palette wet. But this is working for now. Only because this is a small painting, I can do this in Arizona. So now I'm starting to get some shape and some more, some range and color and the value. And just for fun, let's maybe work on one and make it a little bit brighter so you can see how we're going to work here. So I've got a little bit of alizarin, and I put a little yellow ochre into the mix to lighten it up, and some alizarin and a little bit of this cad red medium. So let's see if I put a little bit of that on that real bright area. See how that looks. Maybe it needs to have a little more alizarin because that gives it sort of a more pinky red color that I see on those highlights. Now I accidentally drew this one. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I was drawing this one here, but I ended up, so this one on mine is, this one's taking up that space. And I'm just gonna leave it. I was confusing it with this one in my drawing, so I'll just leave it for now like the way it is. But you can take a little more time and draw yours better than I drew mine. But for the sake of the video, I'm just telling you my drawing's a little off there. So this is getting kind of a nice lighter value there. Just showing that that roundness of the radish, and also the lighter you get on the highlight, the more kind of cooler the color gets. So even though I like to add a little yellow ochre or something, if you don't have yellow ochre, you can add a tiny touch of maybe just some yellow to your mix just to warm it up. I kind of like to keep it warm still. If I put a little white into that mix, you get, let's see, zoom in here. You start to get that real shine, that look when you add the white. It's really fun. I have to resist getting into it right now because I still want to keep blocking in. And I'll go back into some of that darker paint just to blend the edges a little. I'll go back, and even though there's a highlight on there, I'll get some of that darker mix that I had and just kind of use it to blend, you know, keep those edges soft on those. And this one the radish is down in the shadow here. So this little one down here, and in these shadows, I see a little bit of a blue, a tiny bit of a blue color. So we'll get to that soon. I'm gonna get to that mix. What I will do to kind of cool off in the shadows, cool off some of that red. So for now, I'm just going to continue blocking in a lighter, kind of more of a highlight here. And then I'll get some of that darker mix, and I can kind of blend in that color with the cad red and that transparent brown oxide. And if it's a little too light, just add a tiny bit of that sap green in. And that'll darken it up again. And the beauty of acrylic is it dries so fast, you can really layer it up, and it dries so quick you can just paint over it. So I'm just using some of that, you know, alizarin, and to darken it, take a little tiny dab of ultramarine blue or a tiny dab of this sap green, and that darkens it. Even the cobalt seems to work really good. So in the shadows that I see are cooler, I will add the cobalt blue to the cad red medium. And I see more of a bluey shadow in these areas where it's kind of not right in the center. The center seems a lot warmer. So I'm just going to take some of that cobalt, and so you can see what I'm doing here. Some of that cobalt blue and the cad red mix, and it just makes a little bit cooler, a cooler dark red. So I'm going to put that down in this one here. You might want to add a tiny, let's see, the tiniest hint of white to it. Yeah, that kind of shows it up a little more. And I add a little cobalt and some white and the cad red, and I'll get that kind of it's like a reflection off the tablecloth. I'll just put a little hint of it on these ones that are. You can exaggerate. Sometimes I like to exaggerate my blue a little. So I'll add a little more of that cobalt, and you'll see it just shows up, and it looks kind of, let me just zoom in there. So if I put a little bit of that, there's a little bit of that reflection here. You know, I'll just put a bit of that mix down in there. You get sort of those cool reflections off that you see on the radishes. So I put some of that there, and that's just the cobalt and white, cobalt blue, white, and a little bit of the cad red. And we'll just kind of go around, and wherever I see a little bit of that reflected light, I'll put some of that in. Now, another thing, while I'm working with that purpley color, I'm going to go and mix a little more of that. Oh, wait a minute. I'm mixing a little more of that cobalt blue in there. So I don't know if you can see it really well, but it's a very, when you mix cobalt blue and the white and the cad red, you get a nice grayish color. And so I'm just gonna use that color also as a nice color to put in the shadow of, you know, where some of these leaves are. If it's too purple, just add a little more blue to it. You can add a little blue and a tiny touch of that yellow ochre. You'll get a nice kind of gray color, and we'll get that shadow kind of going in there right now. You can lighten it up, use a little more white to lighten it up in some areas where it's not as strong. And I'm just gonna, you know, kind of put that in before I go to putting my tablecloth in. So I'll put some of that in. I can always paint over it if it's more than I need for a shadow, but I like to get something like that nice shadow color in now, because I want to be able to, you know, get these final details in. And I like to kind of get the tablecloth in before I work all these pretty little, you know, roots in. So I'll maybe cut in some of that there. I'm just using that cobalt blue mix with the white and a little bit of that cad red, so it creates a nice grayish purple color. And I'm just gonna take that off the edge there. And I like that, getting that down before I go to the white tablecloth. So now I'm just gonna get in some white, that white paint, go a little stage up, a little brighter, and add some of that lighter white. And you can always get, you can kind of blend the edge. If you go back into your dark mix, you can get a little bit of the dark and just kind of blend the edge a little like that. And just kind of work it around. Like so. And so you're starting to see more, and this is just still, we're just blocking in this tablecloth. It doesn't, you know, you can still adjust at this point. You may think, well, I want to bring it down lower, whatever you know, decide for your painting. You can just start to see it better. And going to just keep, I think I want to keep working on getting some more highlights in on these. I keep looking at them, and I think that in a way the color of the paint kind of dries and then it gets dark again. So I kind of have to add a little more. So I'm going to add a little orange to my mix to get it a little brighter. So this, there's a little stem coming off of this one. And yeah, that's a little, but when you put a little orange into the alizarin mix, it really gets a lot brighter. So I'm just going to go and add that to the other ones a little bit, just to step up the highlights a little. Remember, you don't want to lose the edges, the shadow. So now I think I'm going to put a few of those stems, the little roots in. So if you have some yellow ochre, you could go ahead and use some of that. And this purple mix, you can mix a little bit of that into, you know, you're just going for something kind of like an off-white, really. So if you don't have yellow ochre out, you can take a little bit of the transparent brown oxide and some white, and you'll get sort of an off-white color too that will work just fine. So I'm just going to find where that little stem is coming off, and I don't want to draw a straight line. I want to make it like look like a crookedy, you know, gnarly kind of root like I see. And I like to, you know, play with those roots a little. So I don't want it to look
just like a boring straight root. So you kind of want to, you know, take time to kind of, you know, change the angle a little here and there. They start off pretty thick and then usually go thin. And I like to just, you'll see how I put the first one on a little darker. And then I kind of add a lighter color to it next. And I'll just zoom in so you can see better how I'm doing this. So I'm using the side of my number 4 flat brush. And so I like to kind of, you know, just kind of work like this. But you could use just a thin, like if you have a, you know, one of these round type brushes, just a small, you know, round brush like that, you could just maybe draw it on a lot easier. But I tend to like to use, let's see. That works pretty good. But I usually use these, you know, big clunkier kind of brushes. I don't know why. I probably, it might work better using the thin brush, but, and then this one up here is a little thicker to start with. So I'll just kind of put that down for now. And I'm going to let that dry because later I'm going to go on top of that with the, I'll do a little bit of red on top. And then this one over here kind of comes around and I'll add a little more brown oxide because it's a little darker. So just some white and some brown oxide, maybe a little touch of cobalt would be good to dull it down a little. And it kind of goes off there somewhere. And then we got this one over here. And it's gonna go off something like this. They don't need to be perfect, remember. No one's gonna say, oh wow, that radish root sure looking strange, because they are strange. So, you know, it's just it's a root. So don't worry if you don't get the painting, the angle or something just perfect. The main thing is to have fun with the, you know, just doing them, because they are so, they add so much to the painting, these little things. So we're just going to draw them on, and then we can go back later and we can, you know, tone them a little to be however light or bright we need them to be. But for now, this is a good start just to get them on there. So just gonna zap those in there. And then this one over here kind of comes in. And then we got one here that tucks underneath. I might just have a little fun with that and, you know, just kind of maybe cross it over there, you know. You can play with them. Make it work for your, however your painting is going. So I'm going to let those dry for a bit, and then I want to, this one here, now that the paint's kind of dry, I'm going to bring up on top of that color. You'll see it's just drawing some of that cad red on top, and that really makes it look. And then I kind of brush those brush strokes across like that. Just some of them fade in like that and some of them don't. So this one kind of fades in, and then some of them just go like more like this one here, where it's just really, you know, more of a abrupt color change. So I paint a little spritz, and I'm going to step up the highlight a little more on these guys. So just get some white and alizarin, some of that cad red, and just test it out. So where the highlight comes in is there's the where the little root comes in, you'll see these little highlights are kind of in connection with where that stem comes in. So it just sort of ties in. So I'm going to use this lighter alizarin color and maybe a little more white, maybe some of that cad yellow light, just to get it to really, you know, pop a little. And sometimes I'll just soften the edge with my finger there. And then we got this one here, which is my own made up one. It looks like it's not in the photo because I accidentally drew the wrong one there. And then we got this up here, and I'm kind of getting used to how the acrylic is drying quite dark. So I think we'll see how we do with these highlights. And then this one here has a light here. And we got this one here. It sort of gets a little lighter. And then this one here has more of a bluish highlight. So I'm going to take that same color mix and I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue to it. And it's not as bright as these ones, so I'm going to add a little bit of a blue highlight to that one. So I've just added a little bit of that cobalt blue to it. And then this one too is a little bit, it's just less vibrant, those ones that are down lower here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that blue to it and see how that goes. Now these ones in here, now that I have the dark in and the light in, I might want to go back in with some more of that kind of, the in-between color has a lot of vibrancy to it that I didn't want to get too distracted with in the beginning. So I'm just going to go and put some of that in there. Just kind of spice these ones up that are in the center a bit more. They're a little bit, they kind of lost their vibrancy. So I'm just going to add some more of that cad red and a little dab of the cad red, and I added some of that alizarin, and I think a little transparent red oxide. And I'm just kind of dabbing in a little bit of that kind of more vibrant red there. Kind of got a a little bit too dull, but at the same time, I didn't want to get too distracted with all those bright reds in the beginning. So that's looking more vibrant, and there's a little hit of that bright red in here. Okay, so they're starting to look very radishy. Now there's some little fun things that I see. Some of the little tips have some pink, kind of a real pinky little dab here and there. And just for fun, like I see that pink color right on this guy here. Of course, I didn't paint, I painted mine the wrong way, but here it is. I'm going to just add some of that pink. So I'll put some alizarin and a little bit of white, and just going to kind of, just for fun, put a little bit of that pink in a few places. You know, you don't have to go overboard, but what I like is it just gives a little bit of variety. So got a little dab here. And I got a little dab of it here and here. And probably that's enough before, you know, it starts to dominate and people are saying, why is everything pink? But I kind of like playing around with the color like that. Just like I'll get a little cobalt blue, and I'm just going to put some pure cobalt with you'll see how I've dabbed it there and how it's very transparent. I added some water, and I'll just kind of dab some of that around in the shadows. Just really adds a little bit of vibrancy without hardly any paint. Okay, so now what do? Well, we're getting close to, we haven't done a thing with the greens. We've just got a block in of the sap. So there's lots we can do. So I think before I move on to those greens, well, maybe, wait a minute. I'll work on the green and then we'll go to the very dark black. So I'm going to get some of that sap and some of that cad yellow light, and it makes a really, whoopsies, it makes a really pretty green color. And then I'm going to go around and add some of these lighter leaves. So I've got this one curled over here. Now I'm not a real, it just depends on the painting. I try to keep my greens pretty loose. So the reason I like to block in dark is it gives me all kinds of freedom to make layery, leafy shapes without having to do a lot of work. So I also want to, I'm just going to put that bright green here too. And this one here that's on top of that radish, we're going to put some of that in, and you can see just I'm leaving lots of, I'm going to show you up close because I don't want to paint over all those nice dark greens. I just want to use them as a base to create those leafy shapes. I'm not even too worried. Keeping that shadow there. I'm just putting in some lighter greens, and I'm leaving even some of those darks because I just want to, it creates a lot of interest. Like there's lots of you know, lots going on there without you having to do a lot of work. So the key now is to kind of mix it up a little. So all I did was add the cad light to the sap to get this real lime green color. But I'm now going to add a little cobalt blue to kind of blue, you know, gray it down a little. and a little bit of white, and it makes a nice, like, you know, more of a bluey gray green. And I'm just going to go around and look at where I, you know, quickly see some more of those greens and bring out some of the, you know, variety in the greens. So I like to kind of shift to a, you know, there's a warmer green and then some bluer greens here. And I'm not going to put every, you know, every little vein in my painting. You, if you want to, by all means, everyone has their own style of leaf that they like to, you know, do. I just want to kind of really be loose with the green, and you can just mix up. You can add a little orange to the sap green mix and you'll get, you know, again, a different warm green. But you can play around with that and just kind of, if you add a little more orange, get a really warm, beautiful green. And you can just, you know, there's a few little highlights in between the radishes, like right in here, there's a little bit of a bright green popping through. So just kind of, you can make sure they're not too bright because, you know, they're in between, but just pop a few little bits of that bright green. If you do what I just did and paint it into your radish, just go back in with the red, touch up the edge a little. It's no big deal. We can always make repairs. The main thing is stopping yourself before you go too far down the road. If you don't like the color you're using, don't keep, you know, don't keep going on it. You want to switcheroo and change it up before you get too carried away. So I'm just gonna keep, you know, I look at my painting and look at my photo reference, and maybe I'll use a little of that yellow ochre in the mix and a little dab of white, and just kind of play around with those greens and get a little bit of a highlight on the edge there. And again, I'm not getting into too much detail, just kind of picking up some of those edges and having fun with the layers of paint. So I'm just kind of, and you can get a little bit of that, you know, get a real little dab of something real bright on some of those edges there, and, you know, have fun. But yeah, and the main thing is, this is a fun way of doing it, so it's easier to paint, so you're not having to paint every little leaf. So in the beginning, all I did was block in, you know, all that green paint. I didn't have any of these details, and these details are just a matter of layering different values of green on top of one another. So I'm going to leave it that simple for now, and I'm going to go and get something. I'm going to get the black. So I've just got some black out on my palette, and you can, you know, you don't have to use straight black. I'll take some alizarin crimson and mix it into my black, and just to have some variety, you know. I'll do that just so it's not just pure black. It you know, right now it doesn't seem to make any difference, but if you were to compare an all pure straight black to this black, you would notice a difference. It's we got our little root here. You can always, with acrylic, you can always just paint the root back over the black pretty easy, because this will dry quickly. So I'm not too worried if I don't. And I purposely use this paper towel as a tablecloth for these because, you know, so you can see, you don't need expensive props to do your own little kitchen painting. You can use a paper towel. And I purposely crinkled up in the reference for the reference photo, I purposely, you know, crinkled up the paper towels so that there would be some lines in my reference photo. Just gives it something more interesting than a straight white line there. So I've got my little root going up there that I'll leave. And just gonna work that in and around. And this last layer of, you know, value, this really super dark value will be like the last kind of, okay, now we got to adjust everything kind of to this value. Then I can put in my final touches, because I know, first of all, the tablecloth is still a purple color, not white. So we still have that to really pop in some real bright whites now too. So you can have a lot of fun with these little roots at the end here. I brought this one off the canvas and then back on just for fun. I kind of like that. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we've got some final things to do. I'm gonna first get in that tablecloth a little brighter, a little lighter. So I want to get some of that white, and you can use a tiniest little touch of orange in your white, and it just kind of warms it up a little. You know, you can add a little bit of your liquid medium to it. So now I can go in and add some of these bright highlights to the tablecloth here. And I want to maybe dull it down a little more. And don't forget your little root that you drew down there. So if it's, I can add a little more, a little something, like you can even add a little, I just to see if I can tone it down a little. So I'll add a little cobalt blue to the mix. So it's very pale and white, but it's not pure white. And can leave a bit of that purple in there. Now my tablecloth could come a little lower here. And just get some more of that blue and some of that cad red, and you can, you know, carry on a shadow color on the other side if it's so. I'm just using a little bit of that cobalt blue and cad red mix to kind of get that shadow color there. And I'll take a little bit of the tablecloth and just soften it on, in some areas. I'll just bring a little of that color off the edge a little bit. And then now I want to go and lighten up some of that root here. So I'll get a little bit of that white, and I had some of that brown oxide, and I can go in and just put just a little more of a highlight on there. And then same with this one here. And you can always use your background color to shape it a little, make it a little thinner. And then same with these other ones. You know, you can use some white and some yellow ochre, something, you know, white and that transparent brown oxide, and just get something light to put on. And I'm just using the edge of that brush to do it, but if you're more comfortable using something a little more narrow, go right ahead. Mostly I just don't shift brushes too much because I'm not an exact painter. I'm more of an impression, you know, and give an impression type painter. So I'm not too worried if it's not. And this one here, I'm gonna add some cobalt blue to the mix because it's a little bit grayer and blue. You don't want them all to be the same. And this one just looks that way in the photo. It's kind of a little more gray, blue. And it's good to have variety. Always remember, it's good to have variety. So one of the common things with people just starting out on their painting journey is sometimes they'll pick one green and the whole painting will have that one green. So just remind yourself, variety is a real good thing. You just want things to have different shapes and different lines and color. So I'll just go and change up these lines even. So some of them have a lot of brightness to them and some of them don't. Some of them will go darker And some of them I'll go back and get some of that bluey gray color, and I'll go and, you know, maybe add that to the side of this one here. You could even exaggerate it a little. You can add a little bit more blue here and there. Near the end, I like to do this because just to, you know, have fun with some of the contrasting color. So I'll put a little bit here and there. So now, there's a few little details you can do. If I get here, this is a flat, Princeton flat number 2. I can get a little bit of that red paint, and on this one here, there's just a tiny, oops, gotta watch out for the water on your brush. Get a little bit of the red, and there's just a few little little marks of that radish red coming up, and it's going across like this. So let me just see if I can get, my brush is not. So just along the edge, there's a few little lines. Let me just zoom in so you can see what I did. There's just a few little lines on these guys down here. You can just add a few dabs of that red coming around on some of those. And then some of them have a really bright pinky red color right at the where the root comes into the radish. So I'll get a little, mixing up something kind of bright here. And just put a little, there's like a little highlight on some of them where the light's coming down. So that's some cad red and some alizarin and some orange makes that really bright red. Just putting a little bit more vibrant color back in some of them. And I'm really just squinting down, and it's kind of my gut reaction. When I look at it, I see sort of that brighter color. This one over here, I'm adding more alizarin, not so much, it's not as bright as this red. I just added some alizarin to the mix to dull it down. But you just kind of go with your gut there. And then I'm gonna get some white into that mix, and a little bit of that yellow ochre, I think will do it. And just get a little highlight on some of these. And you can always if your highlight is not the right shape, just get some of that darker paint, and you can kind of just go in and kind of shape around the edges of your highlight a bit to get just soften the edges a little. And I missed one of the little root up here. Kind of got lost in the mix. So there you have it. I think, you know, as you can see, my drawing is a little off on this one here, but yeah, just don't worry so much about that and enjoy just, you know, getting those radishes down and getting some of that bright color going. And that, you know, you can kind of ad lib a bit. If you miss one, just that's all I did, is I just kind of ad libbed here and changed my composition a bit. So the last thing I look at is I'll take a look at, quickly go over and just kind of make sure that I can really see what's in front and what's behind. And there's a few areas I need to kind of touch up. So this area here is just too vague. So I want to go and maybe, first of all, add a little bit of a brighter on this one, maybe add a little bit of a brighter top part. And then this one, so now I'm starting to see that that's there. It was just too much the same. So you just kind of have to just go over and make sure you can really see what, you know, what's on top. And this actually has kind of a bit of that light coming from the tablecloth there, you know. So you just kind of go and, you know, you might have to kind of, you know, be bolder with your shadow or be bolder with your highlight, you know, to really show. You just want to make sure you can clearly see. So this one here is not clear either, so I got distracted. So this is really in front of that one. So I'm going to just make sure you can really see what is in front and what is behind is very important. One of the most important things to learn, because whether you're painting a radish or you're painting flowers, you really got to make sure, because it's so easy to go and paint and then forget what was in your original, you know, what were you originally looking at when you were sketching everything out. There's so many distractions, you know. So just go and make sure you can really see. So this one here is on top of this one. So just make sure you can really see that that's on top. And I think what kind of made it vague is I wanted to get that bluey color in there, and it kind of lost the shape. So I got to get in some of that alizarin now and kind of get that darker shadow back in there. So now you can see better what's on top and, you know, what isn't. And I can use my green to kind of reshape that one a little. And don't overwork, you know. You're better to stop with a, you know, a rougher painting than get too, you know, fussy and then overpaint your painting to the point where it just doesn't have that freshness to it. You're better off with a few brush strokes or so that are a little bit off, I think, than getting into it too much. And sometimes I'll add a little bit of, you know, I've got some cobalt and some black and some of the white, just make a little bit of just some blues in there that aren't like a blacky blue color, just to add a little variety in the black. I'll put a few little streaks of that dark bluey black in there just to have something that's a little bit different. And maybe I'll put one last little touch of that pink back on there. That pink is just white and the cad red light color. I just kind of wanted to make sure I got that back in there. Just gives a little bit of a highlight there. And you can always go and touch up your roots. And just reshape a little. And I think that's about it. I think that that gives you an idea of how to paint in the radishes in acrylic. And I hope that helped you. I didn't mention it earlier, but this was just a plain cotton canvas, and I didn't pre-gesso it or anything, and I should have said that in the beginning. So now when you're done your painting, all you need to do now is when I'm done my acrylic, I'll use the golden gloss medium, and that works as a varnish too. And I'll just go over it after it's dry, and it'll look all really nice when it's fully, glazed over with a gloss varnish. So yeah, I hope that helped. And any questions you have, you can put on the Bold Strokes Facebook page, and I look forward to seeing what you do with your radishes. And thanks for watching.